The Doorman's Dilemma. Part 1. The town stood in eerie silence, a place where sickness lingered like an unshakable shadow. Smoke curled upward from distant pyres, the last remains of those who had succumbed to the plague. The streets were empty, doors bolted shut, windows dark, as if the town itself was afraid to breathe. At the gate, the wood was scarred from the desperate hands that had pounded against it before being turned away. A small sliding panel, its edges worn smooth, was the only connection to the outside world. It groaned open, revealing the figure beyond. She stood cloaked against the cold, her hood drawn low. "You have to let me in," she said, and he felt something tighten in his chest. He should have known she would come eventually. "No one comes inside," he answered, his voice firm, though the weight of his decision pressed against him like the smoke hanging over the town. A pause stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. She reached up, pulling back her hood, revealing familiar features. Her eyes searched his face, pleading. "I'm not sick," she whispered. His grip on the wooden panel tightened, nails digging into the splintered surface. "You know I can't," he said, voice steadier than he felt. She stepped forward, pressing a hand against the gate. "We weren't married long, I know," she said, her voice shaking. "But what we had, it was good, wasn't it? You are a good man. Please let me in." His jaw clenched, his body rigid against the wooden frame, as though any sign of weakness would betray him. "I regret this more than you know," he finally said. She inhaled sharply, her breath visible in the cold. Then, with quiet desperation, she tried again. "I'm pregnant." The words hit like a blow, but his expression did not change. "You're lying," he said, though he wished he could believe her. Her lips trembled, but she did not deny it. She simply waited, hoping, but he had already made his choice. Slowly, he reached for the panel and slid it shut. The lock clicked into place. On the other side, she exhaled, her breath swallowed by the wind. Inside, he let his forehead rest against the gate, his fingers curled against the cold wood. The town remained silent, waiting, holding its breath, unaware from which darkened corner the plague would emerge next.
Context. The Black Plague, also known as the Black Death, swept across medieval Europe in the 14th century, wiping out nearly half of the population. Cities collapsed under the weight of death. Trade routes emptied and entire villages vanished, leaving only silence where life once thrived. In this story, the plague does more than simply claim lives. It lingers, twists and corrupts, turning the afflicted into something beyond death. Our doorman waits, not just for sickness, but for the horrors that will follow in its wake.
Part 2. The town never truly slept. Even in the deep hours of the night, the scent of burning wood mixed with rot, bending through the streets like a silent warning. A flickering lantern here, a hushed murmur there, but mostly nothing. Silence was the safest sound. The doorman stood at the gate, the heavy wooden frame pressing against his back, his grip firm on the latch. He was the one who watched when the others closed their doors, the one who stood while the town dared to rest. Then, footsteps, soft, hesitant, stopping just short of the gate. He knew before she even spoke. "You have to let me in," she said, quieter than before. He swallowed hard but didn't open the panel. "You cannot be sure," he said. "It takes days for symptoms to show, and once it does, you wouldn't even know yourself anymore. You would tear my throat out as soon as look at me." For the first time, there was anger in her voice. "There are madmen in the woods," she said. "They aren't infected, just desperate, wild-eyed, starving. I can't stay out there. I won't last." His fingers curled against the wood, but he did not move. "I can't let you in," he said again. A long silence stretched between them, colder than the night itself. Then her voice softened. "Bring me grain," she said. "If you won't let me in, at least help me to live." He exhaled slowly. "I will bring grain tomorrow." She did not thank him. She did not argue. She simply turned and left, her shadow dissolving into the darkness beyond the gate. The next evening, the doorman stepped into the town, the lanterns dim, the air thick with distrust. He kept close to the walls, watching for movement, listening for voices. A guard was stationed outside the grain house. But he was distracted, speaking with a merchant. The merchant was one of the last to enter before the gates were sealed, a traveler who had seen places beyond these dying streets. "They've done it," the merchant said, his voice edged with confidence. "The Isle of Dunharrow is safe. They found a way to check for illness, but they don't offer passage freely." The guard frowned. "How do they test?" The merchant shrugged. "They don't say. But whatever it is, it works. No infection has reached them. The island is untouched. If you want entry, you need gold, though, and plenty of it." The guard shook his head, muttering something bitter about fortune favoring the cruel. The doorman moved carefully around the side of the store and reached for a sack of grain. He lifted it with careful precision, pressing it against his chest to keep the weight from shifting. Then, a sound behind him, a cough, deep, rattling. He froze, listening. A door sat slightly ajar, shadows flickering inside. Someone inside was sick. The question was, how sick? Part 3. The town was changing. Standing at his post, the doorman listened carefully, his breath steady, his pulse slow, counting the sounds carried by the wind. There had been whispers before, hushed conversations behind locked doors. But now, it was something else. A cough. Stifled, strangled, but undeniable. Then another. Somewhere close, the sickness was moving. He pushed the thought away when footsteps approached the gate. She was there, hood drawn, looking smaller against the wooden frame than she had the night before. The weariness in her stance, the way her shoulders sagged, the way her fingers trembled. Her cloak was dirt-streaked, the fabric stiff from exposure, and her face paler than he remembered, thinner, as if the nights outside had stolen something from her. "I already left it outside," he said, referring to the grain before she could ask. Her shoulders eased slightly. "Thank you," she whispered, sounding grateful, truly grateful for the first time. He hesitated, then asked, "Have you heard of the Isle of Dunharrow?" She nodded. "But it's far. You need a strong boat," she said. "And it costs money to get in," he told her, "and more than most can afford." She sighed, already knowing where this conversation was leading. He would offer to pay to send her there. "I'll bring some gold," he said. "Tomorrow night." She nodded. "And I'll join you." She stared at him, silent, uncertain, the weight of his words taking longer to settle than expected. "You'll leave? You'll really leave?" Her hand reached through the latch. He took it, holding it between both of his own, warmth pressing against cold metal. They lingered there. Then she pulled away, and he let her go. The town had no banks, no vaults, only hiding places, known by few. The doorman walked through the streets carefully, never too fast, never too slow. He knew where the gold was. It was hidden at the back of the church, sealed beneath the stone lid of a tomb, untouched for years. Difficult to lift, but not impossible. A guard stood watch nearby, though his stance was slack, his head low. The doorman waited, hidden in the shadows, listening, watching. The guard coughed, then staggered, barely staying upright. He took a long breath, then another, swaying as he steadied himself. The fever had him. It was only a matter of time now. The doorman watched without emotion, waiting for the moment when the guard would finally collapse, when his body would betray him completely. And when that moment came, the doorman stepped silently over the guard's fevered body. The tomb at the back yielded with grim acceptance, the heavy stone lid shifting, releasing a breath of stale air into the cold night. Inside, the treasures lay waiting, and he gathered them in silence, filling a cloth sack until the weight was nearly too much to carry. Carefully, he lowered the stone lid back into place, pressing it down, adjusting it until it sat as it had before. He hoped no one would check before he had time to flee. By the time he emerged, the sky was turning pale, the first hints of daylight creeping across the rooftops. He moved quickly, making his way home. But the town was waking, the sickness stirring with it. Coughs echoed through the streets, deep, dry, unnatural. One by one, doors creaked open, tired faces emerging in the half-light, eyes hollow, lips pale. The town was changing, and he was running out of time. Part 4. The doorman didn't sleep. Through the thin walls of his home, he listened to the town unravel. The coughs had multiplied, spreading like whispers through the streets, growing louder, more desperate. He felt fine, but he kept his shutters closed, unwilling to risk a stray breath of sickness, unwilling to let prying eyes glimpse the stolen treasures hidden beneath his floorboards. Day stretched into evening, the light fading, the air thick with dread. Then, as the last traces of sunlight disappeared, the screams began. He had to move quickly. Grabbing his hoard of gold, he stepped out into the streets, keeping to the least trodden paths, slipping between shadows, avoiding the places where the sick might linger. Then, a collision. He turned a corner and crashed into someone, the force knocking the sack from his grip. Gold spilt onto the ground, coins rolling into the cracks between the cobblestones. But the other man did not react. He simply stared. The doorman knew him, or at least had known him once, but that man was gone. What remained was something else, entirely. His skin was ashen, his eyes hollow, his breath shallow and uneven. His fingers twitched, as though his body no longer understood how to move. He was more monster now than man. The doorman didn't wait. He gathered as much gold as he could, stuffing it back into the sack. The sick man didn't move. He simply watched as the doorman ran. The gate loomed ahead, the wooden frame solid and unyielding. He reached for the latch, sliding it open. She was there. Her face appeared in the gap, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You came," she whispered. He nodded, saying nothing, as he began passing the gold through the latch, one piece at a time. Behind him, the town collapsed into chaos. Screams, attacks, death. The doomed did not live long after they turned, a day at most, but in that time, they would tear through everything. She pressed her hands against the gate, urgency in her voice. "You have to leave," she said. "Now." But he did not move. "The town is done for," he said. "If I open the gate, they will chase, and we will both die. Go to Blackmere Port," he told her. "Barter passage to Dunharrow. Do not wait for me." More screams behind him. He glanced back, gripping the gate tightly. "Go!" he ordered. "I will hold back the heathens." Her breath hitched, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Then she ran. She did not look back. As she fled into the night, the sounds of screaming and fighting and death followed her, chasing her into the unknown. By morning, the streets were silent again, save for the smouldering ruins and the bodies left behind. But the gate remained unopened. The doorman had done his duty. The end. Thank you for listening to this Hollow Crown tale. The realm holds many more stories, and its legends are waiting for you here. Alternatively, Let me know in the comments if there is a particular tale you would like me to tell.